Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome back to On Texas Football. Welcome back to the game week preview edition here. I am lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers, joined by the young phenom, fellow lifetime Longhorn CJ Vogel. And this game preview is brought to you by good friends over at MyBookie. MyBookie is a great new sponsor of ours, and make sure you're in the game with MyBookie. You can play any matchup, hundreds of college player props, and more. So we'll give you use that code On Texas Football. Give you some more details about how you can participate in some of the great deals happening over at MyBookie in just a second. But we'll go into the Mississippi State preview here a little bit. We still don't necessarily know who the starting quarterback is going to be. That'll be a big topic of conversation. But unfortunately, that's the case for both Mississippi State and for Texas, because Blake Shapen, starting quarterback for the Mississippi State Bulldogs, is out for the season. All right, CJ, before we dive into the details of this breakdown, let's talk overview. Let's talk the macro about Mississippi State for a second. They're 1-3 right now. I heard Paul Feinbaum, who's known as one of the most respected broadcast analysts in the SEC. He claimed on a college football show I was listening to recently that, I'll read the quote for you. Mississippi State, they might be the worst team in the country. End quote by Paul Feinbaum. Do you think he's exaggerating? He's not the worst team in the SEC. He's at the worst team in the country. Is that true? Do you think there's any truth to that, or is he just exaggerating?
It might be a little bit hyperbolic there, but there's certainly, and I say this very confidently, they are certainly the worst team in the SEC. And that's above Vanderbilt. That's above Florida, whoever. Mississippi State, bad team. And it spans a few recruiting cycles, right? Unfortunately, the passing of Mike Leach, that set them back. Zach Arnett, they let him go. They're working against the stacking of talent via recruiting class and portal cycles that other schools in the SEC have been able to accumulate. And right now, injuries are playing a big factor as well. You lose Blake Shapen for the year. He was probably the one lone bright spot on this team. He's gone now. So where do you look for? Who do you go to make a big play? Not a lot of talent, Rod. So for Mississippi State and Jeff Lebby, it's going to be a long first season in Stark Vegas, that's for sure.
Yeah, their only lone win is over an FCS opponent, so they have yet to beat an FBS opponent. And you're right. That's crazy that people are realistically saying, no, Vanderbilt is a better and more talented football team right now than Mississippi State. That's hard for an old man like me to accept, man. This is times they are changing. Let's talk about our friends at MyBookie before we dive into the breakdown a little bit more here. But our friends over at MyBookie, folks, it's an exciting season at MyBookie. You want to make sure that you're in the game with MyBookie. You can bet any matchup, hundreds of college player props, and take advantage of weekly risk-free bets. The best part is you can do it all anytime, anywhere you want to, straight from your phone. Talk about convenience. That's what MyBookie is all about. Visit mybookie.ag and use the promo code ONTexas to get started. It's MyBookie's 10-year anniversary, and they're rolling out the red carpet for each and every one of you. You can bet big and bet confident with risk-free Thursdays. If your boosted bet doesn't hit, you'll get all your money back. Weekly, no sweat, win-win bets all season long. You cannot beat a deal like that. And if you sign up right now using the code on Texas, you can cash in on a double deposit bonus right now. It's a no-brainer. Double the cash in your account before you even place a bet with MyBookie. See, you're making money before you even put any money down with MyBookie. But do not wait on it, because it's only available for a limited time, so you want to cash in right now. For those of you who've been playing with MyBookie, they've got something for you too. A brand new loyalty rewards program in MyBookie Plus. It's simple. The more you play, the more you earn. And as you progress through the tiers, you can unlock exclusive promotions, epic giveaways, and cash back in your account. Go check out mybookie.ag. All right, CJ, let's start on offense, because you broke it down there. That's where the most unique elements of this program are. It's because the offense itself is a very unique beast. So I talked about that, the veer and shoot offense that Jeff Lebby brings. Now, that veer and shoot offense was much more formidable when you had Blake Shapen, a veteran quarterback, at the helm as a starting quarterback. But it's still an offense that it puts a lot of stress on defenses in a lot of ways, right? Formationally, number one, very wide splits of the receivers. So what does that do? Well, that forces safeties and DBs I got to respect the alignment of the wide receiver. So I got to take myself out of the box. How far from the box? That depends on your scheme. It depends on how much range you have as a player. But still, I cannot be stacked in the box. Otherwise, the numbers advantage on the outside is going to be obvious. And I'm going to be running and chasing a lot of open field tackles with the screen game to the wide receivers and the one-on-ones they create on the outside in the perimeter. Well, at the same time, also got to make sure that I'm a forced run defender in the box, and it forces you to have to split the difference and you got to force your safeties to have a lot of range, whether you're going out there to contribute to the numbers advantage, allocating resources to the perimeter or in the box. And then on top of that, they got pace. So they're going to go, sometimes it's up tempo, sometimes it's just pace, but they go up tempo. It's another stress factor on the defense. So they stress you horizontally with formations. They stress you with strategy with the tempo, and they're supposed to stretch you horizontally with the deep passing game. That's what the old Art Browse formula was about. We're going to stress you every way we can. And with all that stress on your defense, something's going to break. Something's going to pop. And then that's where we'll make a big play. I don't know if this Mississippi State squad, though, CJ, if they have the proper elements, they have the proper pieces to be able to maximize those advantages that they have strategy-wise and formation-wise.
Yeah, certainly. I know in weeks past, we've used kind of the talking point of how many Mississippi State Bulldogs would start or at least contribute on this Texas team. Right now, I think the only guy that would be in consideration is Kevin Coleman, and that might be a familiar name to a lot of Texas fans. Of course, Sarkisian was recruiting him pretty heavily out of the St. Louis area before he ended up, I believe, having stints at both Jackson State and Louisville. He's now at Mississippi State, coming back to the SEC, where I think a lot of folks believed he would end up in his recruitment. He's really the one piece that you look at and say, okay, we got to find out where he is on the field. Find number 3 and go put a body on him. 27 targets. He has 22 receptions, 287 yards, and 3 touchdowns, Rod. He's been the one consistent piece on that offense, I would say, so far. Of course, Jordan Mosley's another guy that's been solid for him. But again, Kevin Coleman, a high 4-star rated guy out of high school, was a guy that Sarkisian and the staff was looking at. That's really the one piece that you have to hone in on defensively. I do like Seydou Traore. He is the tight end for Mississippi State. Again, they're going to have to throw the football, and they're going to have to find chunk plays. He's a guy that's been able to find success. He's averaging about 10 yards of reception so far and about 12 receptions. So you see where they like to get the football to. It's Kevin Coleman, and it's Traore over the middle. However, do you have the other pieces necessary to take away from Texas's ability to just hone in on those 2 pieces? Right now, I don't think so. And with a brand new starting quarterback without Blake Shapen, now I think you're going to be feeling that Texas pressure from the edges, up the middle with Vernon Broughton and Alfred Collins. You're going to see that much quicker, and that clock will go much faster than what is normally the expectation with a veteran, experienced quarterback behind center.
No, it's a good point there. And I was a little surprised. I went and looked up the explosive plays of 10-plus yards and 20-plus yards. That offense still is pretty explosive. If you look at it, Texas has 67 plays of 10-plus yards. Mississippi State has 64. And if you look at 20-plus yard plays, that's where a little bit of separation. Texas has 26 of those. Mississippi State has 15. So this is an offense that, can be explosive, and they can have some of those big plays. I think ultimately that was under Blake Shapen. Now you're going to have either Martin Van Buren or Chris Parsons as your starting quarterbacks. And that could change, the outlook. That could change some of those numbers I just brought up, because the offense is not going to be as explosive. And the running game is going to be, I think, even more important with a young quarterback, inexperienced quarterback in there. Johnny Daniels is their running back who lately they've seen some positive returns in the running game, but for the most part, they don't necessarily have a running game that threatens Texas, considering the ilk of the Texas defense. They're basically going up against what statistically can be described as a top 10 to top 5 defense in Texas. You may describe it as the best defense in the country if you want to. It's in
you
that
certainly could. Yeah. With the way that Texas is, 2 touchdowns allowed through 4 games, we've talked about it, but in the sense that Texas is also allowing, Rod, just about 0.4 points per drive this year. That's the best in the country. And again, it's hard to ask for much more out of this Texas defense in terms of what they've been able to put on tape. Interceptions are prevalent. Big third down stops. I believe they're top 5 in the country in that category as well. The big plays needed defensively, someone is stepping up and making that play. And against an inexperienced quarterback, that's a recipe for disaster for Mississippi State.
Yep, I agree. And Texas is very opportunistic defense right now, making a lot of plays on the football. That's something else to watch. Also, looking at the matchup of the Texas defense going up against this Mississippi State offense, they have allowed 13 sacks already. So
Texas fans might finally be able to sit back, Rod, and say, finally, we're getting consistent sacks on a team. Pressure's been there. Sack numbers maybe not. This is a team in which you could certainly expect, if they opt to throw the football, which this offense very much plays in favor of, you'll see some sack opportunities for Texas on Saturday.
Yeah, especially inexperienced quarterbacks too, who don't have a lot of experience with that offensive line and safety protections. Mm-hmm. I think there will be a lot of opportunities there. Good point there, CJ. Let's jump to the other side of the ball, and that Mississippi State defense. Coleman Hutzler is a name that Longhorn fans might be familiar with because Coleman Hutzler is the defensive coordinator there now, and he is having a real tough time. That defense is one of the worst defenses in the country right now. I know you'll probably go over the rankings where they are in a lot of different areas, but man, Arizona State ran for 346 yards on them. Florida averaged I think it was over 6 yards per rush against them. The quarterbacks complete over 90% of their passes against them. Hell, Toledo ran for 6 touchdowns versus this defense. And 3 straight weeks, they've been worn out with the run game. I almost feel like maybe that's why Texas saddled up. That's why Sark saddled up Jaden Blue. Maybe looking ahead to Mississippi State and went, nah, we're going to need to pound the rock against this team because they just can't stop the run. I went and looked at it. There are only 10 teams in college football with a worse rush defense than Mississippi State. Only 8 teams allowed more rushing yards total than Mississippi State, and only 8 teams have allowed more, have been basically ran on more than Mississippi State. It is the way to beat Mississippi State. It is a flaw that I don't know. It's a glaring one that I don't know if they can remedy, and it's a bad one to have in the SEC.
Yeah, it certainly is. Especially you look at that Toledo game, Rod. Mississippi State played that at home and lost the time of possession 37-23. That's really bad. And it starts up front defensively. They just don't have the beef. They don't have the quickness. They don't have the strength to stop the run. And they sure don't have the guys that can get after the quarterback. Their leading pass rusher in terms of pressures on the quarterback is DeMonte Russell. 6 pressures on the year per PFF. Colin Simmons had that in 1 game against Michigan. No players on that front 7 has more than 1 sack. They have 4 guys with 1 sack apiece. They don't get pressure on the quarterback, and they can't stop the run, which in turn puts a lot of pressure and stress on that back 7. And as you see, teams have been able to really go down the field and score with ease. Florida offense, which looked kind of dead and inept against Texas A&M, was able to put 45 points on the board, and I think there were only 3 or 4 total incompletions from DJ Lagway and Graham Mertz combined. Crazy. So, again, Mississippi State, they just don't have a lot of talent right now. It might come down the road. Maybe you see some guys emerge, some young cats taking advantage of the opportunity. Right now, they don't have a lot of pieces that are SEC caliber for a top-end team like a Texas, an Ole Miss, a Tennessee, and Alabama. You just don't see that defensively. And again, with Texas's offensive line, with the way that they've been playing so far this year, it should be a clean pocket for an Arch Manning or a Quinn Ewers, whoever's back there. That should be the expectation, is a clean jersey for whichever quarterback is back there.
I agree with you. There's no doubt about it. And if you go look at it, they are 130th in 10-plus yard plays allowed already. Texas, very explosive offense, so that's not a good recipe. And Texas, we talked about it, Texas hasn't had a lot of explosive runs.
Yeah.
If you look at runs of at least 10-plus yards, how about this little stat for you? Mississippi State and Texas have the same amount of 10-plus yard runs. That will change over the weekend. They got 19, according to this stat here, 19 of them. So they allow a lot of big plays, and man, we went over some of these defensive rankings for Mississippi State, but I don't know if I've ever seen a Mississippi State squad with a defense that is struggling as much as this defense is struggling. And we
It's
posted,
bad, Rod.
and I believe you posted these, CJ, or at least we had them from your research over at On Texas. If you look at scoring defense, they are 113th in scoring defense. Total defense, 109th. Points per play allowed, 111th. Yards per play allowed, 105th. Third down D, 112th. I mean, you keep going.
If you're ranking for any of these, start with 100. It's not going to go well again. Going on the road too, because they've had the luxury there a little bit, Rod, of playing at home for most of this season.
Wow.
If these are the results that we're seeing so far through 4 weeks, going on the road to play in a hostile environment like Texas, where they're going to emphasize the start of the SEC era. Fans will be excited. It's going to be a 3:15 kick.
Yep.
I don't know if the weather is going to be too much of an issue. I think it was about 88, 89 the last time I checked what the game time temperature will be. But at some point when that kickoff is, in the air for the second half, I'm believing that there's not going to be much fight left in Mississippi State because of the way that we've seen Texas go on runs from the first to second quarter where it feels like you blink and there's 28 points put up on the board. That's kind of been a theme with Texas offensively in the first half. And when you're 1-3 so far this year and you're looking around saying, man, we don't really have anything going defensively, what do you start to fight for? And right now for Mississippi State, my belief is there's not a whole lot.
Yeah, I agree. And I think for Texas, I would say I think they got to come out and just run the ball because that's the weakness of Mississippi State. But, I mean, I don't think there's anything that Mississippi State defensively could do to stop Texas. I think it'll be more self-inflicted wounds if Texas, like maybe it's penalties or, maybe a young arch, some more growing pains. Other than that, I don't see a way that Mississippi State can really stop Texas. The line on this game, where is it now, CJ? I know you keep up with those.
38.5, Rod. How about that? That's a lot of points for an SEC game.
I was going to say, man, an SEC opener. Hell, what was the line on the UTSA game? Wasn't that line
35, 34?
Wow. So you're telling me they think I guess I mean, if Paul Feinbaum's right, he says they're the worst team in the country. So I guess UTSA is a better program right now than that's hard to think of than Mississippi State. But with the injury to Blake Shapen, honestly, I can see it. And you know what? That's the one factor that may throw this whole preview and all the predictions out of whack. We don't know how good Mike Van Buren and Chris Parsons are. They're both, I mean, are they up to the task on the road against the number one team in the country, against the best defense in the country? Most people think that they'll be swallowed alive by that scenario, but who knows? Every now and then, hey, so one of these guys may rise to the occasion. But I think Texas covers that number, CJ. It's a big number in SEC play.
Big number.
I think even with Arch, I think they cover that. That's bold to say. That's how bad I think Mississippi State is actually right now.
Yeah, no, I don't expect this game to be close, Rod. And again, it should be another game where, Sarkisian and the staff are able to filter in a whole bunch of players to get live game experience. One thing that I thought was interesting, Sarkisian on his teleconference on Wednesday was kind of sitting there saying, we're aware of the redshirt situations with a lot of guys, but right now we don't care. Whoever is able to get on the field and contribute for us and find ways for us to win football games, that's who's going to play. So with Texas kind of inching into week 5 and 6 and 7 later on, you'll start to see some business decisions from a redshirt perspective. And this is a game that will certainly bode well for getting a lot of guys, a lot of snaps early on.
I didn't think about that, CJ, but you are right. They've been playing a ton of guys in these first 4 games. And now you're right. This is the cutoff, so guys can reserve that red shirt. That's important for a lot of guys. There's a huge national story about that right now, about a young man deciding to invoke his own red shirt, which is I like that, invoking your own red shirt. Yeah, it is interesting. We are at interesting times. Let's thank our good friends at MyBookie one more time before we get out of here. Great stuff, CJ. This episode of our game preview on Texas football brought to you by MyBookie. With all the excitement of this season, make sure you're in the game with MyBookie. Bet any matchup, hundreds of college player props, and take advantage of weekly risk-free bets. The best part is you can do it all anytime, anywhere, straight from your phone. Visit mybookie.ag. Use the promo code ONTexas to get started. It's MyBookie's 10-year anniversary, so they're rolling out the red carpet for each and every one of you. You can bet big and bet confidently with risk-free Thursdays. If your boosted bet doesn't hit, you'll get all your money back weekly. No sweat, win-win bets all season long. And sign up right now. Use the code ONTexas to cash in on a double deposit bonus. It's a no-brainer. Double the cash in your account before you even place your first bet with MyBookie. But don't wait, because right now it's only available for a limited time only. For those of you who've been playing with MyBookie and winning with MyBookie for years, they got something for you too. A brand new loyalty rewards program in MyBookie Plus. It's simple. The more you play, the more you earn. And as you progress through the tiers, you can unlock exclusive promotions, epic giveaways, and cash back in your account. Thanks to MyBookie.ag for sponsoring our game week preview. Thank you to you too, as well, CJ, for all the great info. Thank you guys out there for watching and for listening. For CJ Vogel, for our friends at MyBookie, and for the On Texas Football family. Until next time, hook 'em horns.